Well, YouTube, Ben Ochart here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I want to speak with you a little bit about oxygen. For those of you who follow my channel and have been following it for a while, you know that a few years ago I had an incident regarding oxygen, and it ended up costing me some fish that I really cared for a lot, and in particular one Fusco that was pretty amazing. And it taught me some hard lessons, and I ended up doing a little bit of research and a little bit after the fact and a little bit backwards. So hopefully this video can help you to understand how that works, and certainly if you have an aquarium that has a surface tension breakup, in other words, the surface of your aquarium is being broken up somehow, whether it's through a hang-on back filter that is pouring water into the aquarium, or perhaps a bubbler, an air stone, or even the outputs of canister filters. If they're positioned near the surface and they're creating some turbulence on the surface, you are adding oxygen to the aquarium. In my case, what happened a few years ago is I repositioned the outputs of the canisters and put them a little bit deeper below the waterline, and the waterline became calm and essentially sealed off any gas exchange. And so you have to have that surface breaking up so that the bad gas, the carbon dioxide, can escape and oxygen can get in. Now, the most popular ways to do that, of course, are with things like air stones, and in my case, I use power heads, and also how I position the canister outputs, which is what I do in my 60-gallon. In the 60-gallon, there are three ways that oxygen is being added, and that's with the actual outputs of the canisters, breaking up surface tension, and the hang-on back filter that is pouring water back in the tank, and by doing so, breaking up the surface. With the 100-gallon, you have, of course, the bubbles that are coming out of the algae scrubber, and you also have surface tension being broken up by a couple power heads that I have in there. That tank in particular, I try and keep very oxygen rich because I have it so heavily stocked. With the 150, the tank you see here behind me, I have no worries about oxygen. And that's because as the water goes down the overflow box, that's that black box you see here, it has cutouts on the top that you can barely see, and those cutouts, water is pouring in there, and dripping down the box, and in doing so, it's breaking up and getting oxygenated. Then it trickles over media in the sump, and then is going through a chamber with a large air stone, and then is being returned to the tank. So there's lots of oxygen in that tank. One of the signs that there is a lot of oxygen is you don't see the fish working their mouths. Certainly if they're eating or excited about something, yes, you'll see that. But normally, as they swim around and explore and interact with each other, their mouths shouldn't be opening and closing steadily. That's a sign that your aquarium is low in oxygen. Another sign is that they're hanging around the top, opening and closing their mouths. That's where most of the oxygen is. That's where the exchange occurs. And so if they're hanging out up there, your aquarium might be low in oxygen. So one of the tricky things about an aquarium that goes low in oxygen and kills off some fish is that as the fish die off, you will reach a point where there's enough oxygen to sustain the remaining fish. So at first it might leave you actually a bit bewildered, a little bit confused, because all of a sudden the fish will start doing okay again. So you'll think maybe you had a spike in ammonia or nitrates or something, or you'll kind of write it off, because as the fish died off and oxygen consumption decreased, it would reach a point where there was enough to sustain who was left. That's what happened in the 60-gallon years ago for me, and left me a bit confused until I figured it out, and then returned the outputs back to the waterline so they could keep breaking up the surface again. So understand that the symptoms, gasping, working their mouths continuously, hanging around the top. Also understand that if you have a drop in oxygen, you could have a few fish die, and then everybody else seems okay again because now there's enough oxygen for the remaining fish. So don't mess around. If you see fish gasping or hanging around the top, add an air stone or break up that surface with a power head or things of this nature. Also, keep in mind that if you are running your tanks warm, let's say 80 degrees, 82, 84, let's say you heat the tanks up as part of a treatment for something like ick. Some people like to heat up their tanks when they're doing an ick treatment. Add an air stone, because apparently the oxygen levels, it's harder to dissolve and get the oxygen into the water, or perhaps it's harder for the fish to absorb it in a higher temperature. I'm not sure of the exact science in detail behind that, but I do know that if you raise the temperature of your tank, or let's say you have a tank in a room that gets particularly warm in the summertime, you should actually add an air stone or break up the surface with something like a power head. Okay? So I hope this helps. Keep your tank well oxygenated. It contributes to healthier fish, less stressed fish, and more colorful fish. Okay? All those go together. Certainly, if somebody was strangling you, you notice your color would change. And you would eventually die. So don't do that to your fish. Don't choke your fish, and watch them. And if you see them work in their mouths, consider adding an air stone or reposition a power head or an output to break up that surface. Okay? All right. That's it for me. I hope this helps, and hopefully it helps you to keep healthy fish and not make the mistake I made a few years ago that was no fun, believe me. Okay? Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to comment below if you have any tips on oxygen, any questions about oxygenating your tank. I'd love to hear them. And be sure to rate. And if you haven't already, please sub. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.